If you feel like you've been working really hard and studying very hard to improve your English, but you've been stuck at the same English level for several months, you're not crazy. This is actually pretty normal among most English learners. You have simply reached what we would call the intermediate plateau, which is an area where most people get stuck. And unfortunately, most people end up giving up and just accepting the fact that they will have a mediocre level of English for the rest of their lives. The good news is you actually can get out of the intermediate plateau. There is a solution, and it is not even very complicated. But it is important to keep in mind that the methods that got you from the beginner levels to the intermediate levels of English are not necessarily the same methods that you're going to need to use to go from intermediate to advanced. So I'm going to give you 3 English learning methods that you must have in your English learning routine if you want to ever get to the advanced levels of English. Now, for those of you who are new here, I am a native English speaker who had to learn the French language for a bunch of reasons. Anyway, I was studying for 3 months straight, and I was doing my comprehensible input, meaning I was practicing my listening and reading skills and my observation skills every day. I felt like I was making a ton of progress because I was consuming so much French media at the time, and I was thinking that it was really washing over because I was listening to so many videos and reading so many articles and just posts on French social media. But to validate all of the time and effort I was spending, I actually took a proficiency test to see what my current level of French was. I really want to know if now I'm at closer to the C1 level of French as opposed to the B1 or B2 levels of French. I took the test, I got the results, and my heart sank. I was still around the B1 level of French, which was the exact same score that I got 3 months prior. All of that time spent, all of those hours spent listening to and reading French media instead of English media, I began to feel like I was really wasting my time. I felt defeated. And I honestly began to believe that maybe I will just never get to the advanced levels of French. Maybe that's just reserved for native French speakers. Maybe it's unrealistic for me to think that I'm going to speak close to the same level as a native speaker or an advanced speaker when I'm a non-native speaker. I'm just going to speak intermediate, broken, crappy French for the rest of my life. But then I encountered some other English speakers who actually did achieve the advanced levels of French. I took a close look at what they were doing, and I realized I'm just going to have to change my approach and study differently if I want to go from intermediate to advanced, as opposed to the methods that I was using when I went from beginner to intermediate. In other words, I had to change my system. I had to do things a little bit differently. And the exact same thing applies to you guys too who are learning English. You will need to tweak your system and you will need to approach learning English differently than you did when you were going from the beginner levels of English to the intermediate levels of English. So I'm going to show you 3 easy methods to help you start growing your brain again in English. And keep in mind that the vast majority of English learners are too scared to do the third method that I'm going to show you, which is actually the method that is going to get you the most results in the shortest period of time. Now, the first method is the 10% rule or the 10+% rule. This just implies that the content that you're listening to is too easy for you to understand. If you can understand 100% of the content that you are listening to in English, it is too easy for you to understand. You should be able to understand closer to 80 to 90% of what is being said. And that 10 to 20% that you do not understand, you can either guess what it means based on the context by which it is delivered, or you can actually study it more profoundly. This is going to be the most efficient way to listen and wake your brain up so it can actively pay attention to what is going on. The second method involves proactively hunting for new vocabulary words. Now, first of all, you cannot really develop an advanced vernacular or an advanced set of vocabulary just by listening alone. You must also read to some degree, even if it means reading subtitles. This doesn't have to be long. You could simply watch a short video with subtitles and read the subtitles as you're listening. Or you can simply just read an article, a short article about anything that you're interested in on the internet. The 10+% rule applies to this too. You should understand around 80% to 90% of what you're consuming. And then for the other 10 to 20%, I want you to find at least 2 or more terms, expressions, idioms, etc., that you want to actually add and use in your active vocabulary. Once you choose these 1 or 2 expressions or terms each day as you do this exercise, I want you to actually practice applying them as much as you can, whether that's just texting them on your phone, writing them handwritten, typing it on your computer, and actually speaking it out loud in real life. And this leads to the third method, which is the most impactful and will get you the best results in the shortest period of time. And that is called the 5-minute production. This is the method that the average English learner does not do. And guess what? The average English learner gets average results because they do not do this. You must produce output every day, not input, but actual output. I would actually argue you should be practicing your output way more than you're practicing your input. For 5 minutes a day, it could even be less than this if you want. You just need to speak to yourself out loud in English. That's it. It will feel strange. It will feel unnatural. It'll feel like you're probably making some mistakes that you will be able to correct later with feedback, but you absolutely need to do this. And me personally, I would even advise that you practice speaking out loud to yourself way more than you practice listening and reading other media in English. The average English learner does not do this because naturally it's much easier to pop on YouTube and just listen to English media than it is to actually unnaturally and awkwardly speak English when you're not used to making English sounds. Because speaking is harder than listening, most English learners do not practice it as much because it is not as easy to practice. And this leads the average English learner to having average results. And an average result is staying at the intermediate plateau and never getting to the advanced levels of English. If you want to be above average, then please do method number 3, the 5-minute production. This is personally what made me an advanced communicator in French. And honestly, the same thing applies to those who are learning the English language too. So to recap, passive listening gives you words. Active reading lets you steal these words. Listening fills your head, and production forces it to come out of your mouth physically. So stop running in place and use these 3 methods every single day to see real progress. And you don't need to spend several hours doing this every day. It could literally be 5 to 15 minutes every day. And if you can do that consistently every day, 365 days out of a year, you are going to see massive results in that span of time. Now, if you found this video useful, be sure to like the video to let the YouTube algorithm know that this video is useful for other people who are trying to improve their English. And if you're new here, if this is the first video you're watching on Arc English, be sure to leave a comment down below letting me know where you're from and what your native language is. I'd be very fascinated to know. If you're a returning viewer, let me know in the comments how your progress is going with learning English and if you've actually tried any of these exercises as well and if they've helped you. Also, very soon, I'll be releasing a free training showing you how to increase your English level faster than the vast majority of other English learners. So, if you'd like to check that out, I'll leave a link somewhere in the description or the pinned comment below. And if you want to learn the easiest way to stop translating words back into your native language in your head, be sure to watch the next video on the screen.